ourselves in the purpose of our coming together. This is an opportunity to deepen our understanding and strengthen our commitment to aligning our finances and investments with our faith values. Your presence here reflects your choice to be part of a community dedicated to making a positive impact with your money, and we thank you. I will now read an extract from the Prayer for Our Earth by Pope Francis in Laudato Si. All-powerful God, you are present in the universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with your peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Amen. So this webinar, Practical Conversations on Ecological Economics, aims to provide you with actionable guidance on making ethical investment choices and financial decisions that not only benefit you, but also contribute to the health of our planet. We're joined today by 3 experts in the field of ecological economics who will delve into the principles of sustainability and how these can be integrated into personal and organizational financial practices. Topics will include green investing, the role of ethics in financial decision-making, and how to assess the ecological impact of investment portfolios. And we hope you will gain a deeper understanding of how you can do this practically, as well as hearing from learnings from other organizations. Now, it's my honor to introduce our 3 speakers who can share some insights on this topic. We're joined by Felipe Wichger, the co-founder of the Francesco Collaborative, Ricardo Flores, an economist at the Economy of Francesco, and Matthew Jensen, my colleague at FaithInvest, the director of Faith Consistent Investing. Their biographies are being posted in the chat to save some time, as we have a very tight schedule. I remind our participants that you can submit your questions in the Q&A tab at any time during the presentations. We'll answer as many as we can here, and we'll also have time at the end for a few key questions to Felipe, Ricardo, and Matthew. So now we'll start with a presentation from Felipe Wichger from the Francesco Collaborative. Felipe, over to you.
Thank you. It's great to be with everybody. I'm joining you from Durham, North Carolina. As a brief introduction, I am the son of a Cuban immigrant, and my faith and political formation really came from experiences in El Salvador, Ecuador, and Brazil. My career began as an energy consultant, and then for about 10 years, I built and operated a cooperative called the Community Purchasing Alliance, which was aimed at helping churches and school facilities lower their ecological footprint by installing solar panels, doing food waste separation, waste hauling, and really trying to build community wealth by choosing who we work with to maintain our facilities, to be proactively built on community wealth through smaller businesses, through cooperative businesses in Washington, D.C. But my deepest source of pain and angst and sinfulness, as I read Laudato Si and just as a person who grew up in the church, really came from my investment portfolio. I was privileged to have a 401k, a retirement account when I was 22. And I remember asking my mentors, where should I put this 401k? And the options were so limited. They often suggested, even the most faith-embodied, even progressive thinkers would say, put it into an index fund. And I remember my heart just sank, because I was a part of a company that became a publicly traded company that went on to be acquired and bigger and bigger. And it was the concentration and centralization of wealth that helped me build my critical analysis of the conventional logic of finance and investing. So today I'm going to offer you a little bit of the framework that my co-founder, Elizabeth Garlow, myself, and the 200 members of our Livable Future Investing workshop community have built over the past 3 years. And we continue to build this, and we want to invite you into the journey with us of how to build a framework that translates Laudato Si into practical action steps we can take with our investing, with our purchasing, with all of our economic imagination and our economic lives and community with others. Finally, I'll offer 3 practical steps for organizations, for individuals, and then for building relationships of solidarity that are part of the journey for me of being on the synodal path, is that ongoing with people on the peripheries, on the margins, that help convict the heart to the crisis of our time that too often gets forgotten, especially in places of investing in asset management. So the Francesco Collaborative was born in 2021 in response to Pope Francis's letter to the Economy of Francesco to young economists and entrepreneurs. And at the Economy of Francesco, we heard from Kate Rayworth from Donut Economics. And you are probably familiar with this, but if you're not, it's one of the most helpful reframings of how I think we can understand the intellectual tradition of what has happened in the field of economics, and the invitation we have to think like a Laudato Si embodied economist. And the critical part here is that there is a minimum social foundation and there is an environmental ceiling, and that space in between is what we have to work with. In terms of investment portfolios, on the far left here, we have traditional investments. And I wanted to just kind of highlight what we focused on at the Francesco Collaborative. And I also should note that we have recently merged together with the Catholic Impact Investing Collaborative. So we are part of 2 organizations today. We focus on the green at the far right here, investing in companies that are intentionally contributing to solutions to environmental and social problems. In the middle here, we have the more traditional socially responsible investment approaches related to negative screening. This might be divestment. This might be shareholder engagement, trying to change corporate behaviors. Or you might have things like ESG or best in class. These are often thought of as positive screens. Now, these 2 middle blue boxes are all within public equities and all within public markets, where there's the vast majority of our capital is stewarded in public equities. But we focus on impact investing. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute.
Felipe,
within impact investing, I just also wanted to draw 3 additional distinctions that I think are helpful, especially when we get more practical. In impact investing, because of the dominance of large financial players, we often find it important to differentiate between a bank that creates a finance or an impact investing fund versus a purpose-driven organization that creates an impact first fund. And the idea is, are you pursuing the impact first? Is that the primary purpose of your mission, of your organization? Or is it, making money? The finance dimension is the first part. And then the third category, which I think...
Felipe, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you to make it full screen or slideshow? We've had a few requests so that people can read it.
Sure.
Sorry about that.
Is that helpful, Susie? And so...
Yes, that's great. Thank you very much.
So just to kind of start from the far left, most often Catholic investors think about screening away aligned with their bishop's conference, aligned with Mensorum Bonum, aligned with any number. And so they take their traditional firms and they take out. That is the form of faith-based investing that has been most common over the past 30 or 40 years. And we are trying to say, we don't think you can be faith-based. You don't think you can really embody Laudato Si or any part of our Catholic tradition without proactively visioning a new kind of economy. And that's why it's so important for us to start with new frameworks in economics that help us see how the neoclassical logic has got us to a place of crisis, and we need new logics. We need new faith first logic to kind of come to this. And so that's the primary purpose of making these distinctions between different types of impact investing, to sort through the many conversations that are out there. Now, in general, the more catalytic, the more direct, you can have the deeper impact. So let's try to translate briefly what Catholic social teaching might mean as a framework. So we're all familiar with the history of the documents that go back to 1890 with Rerum Novarum and Pope Leo. And this document was a central piece of our tradition because it wrestled with, at the time of the Industrial Revolution, what is the role of capital in relationship to labor? And this becomes one of the first documents of our church to really wrestle with this. And there's so many other documents that try to say, how do we engage with the world? And the invitation for all of us is to continue engaging with Fratelli Tutti, with Laudato Si, with all of these documents, the principles, but then what does that practically mean for how we make investment decisions? And that is the purpose of our community, is to try to offer exactly that. So we have the principles, and then how do we translate these principles to investing? So in terms of solidarity, we might define solidarity as a structured commitment to neighbor love. So in a structure of a business or an investment fund, how do we engage other stakeholders, our neighbor, perhaps workers, perhaps suppliers, perhaps customers, in the design, the governance, and the ownership of the fund? And for us, that is the embodiment of right relationship. For non-maximization, how might you, we think it's so important to understand that in all of our conventional finance logic, maximizing returns, maximizing profit is such a core dimension to our conventional logic. And then there needs to be a principle of non-maximization. And some leading theologians and ethicists have led to Catholic social teaching talks about non-maximization as a core principle. And finally, with subsidiarity, with decision-making, participation needs to be a crucial element. So we elaborate on these three principles and we paint them into a spectrum. And structures of sin is on one end and right relationship on the other. And I know it's hard to see, but we will go to the next slide here that helps us see what is happening on the x-axis here from the horizontal. So we talk about both the what and the how of we invest that matters so much. So we're talking a little bit about how important it is to see how in our conventional capital supremacy logics of most of our investments and most of our financial markets today, there's not a participatory design. Risks are externalized to other communities and the poor, and we're not maximizing profit. And the vertical axis from structures of sin to right relationship. Well, I want to move along to just tell you two stories. So if you're an organization here today, how do you get clear about applying this practically in your life? There's three things we need to do. One is to get clear to name how our conventional portfolios are managed with a certain logic and a certain theology, I would say, and ethics that aren't congruous to Laudato Si. So we need to get clear on the formation personally and the conviction around that. Second, we need to change our investment advisors to somebody who appreciates this tradition and where we are coming from. And then three, we need to make new kinds of investments. And so I want to highlight this religious congregation in Wisconsin who has made all of these investments and has built 7 themes from Laudato Si goals from Catholic social teaching and ranked each of them. And they have been so compelled as a congregation based on this work that they have allocated more and more of their portfolio to this kind of deep transformative impact investing. As individuals, it also requires new mindsets. It's so helpful to take the spiritual dimensions of prayer to recognize when are we afraid and accumulating wealth for ourselves. And so what are the new mindsets we need? One of the best alternative investment funds that I have found and shifted the majority of my portfolio to is an investment cooperative called Quechua Impact Fund in Colorado. And they only invest in impact companies and impact real estate. And I wanted to just kind of highlight their name for you in case you were interested in joining this cooperative for the kinds of solar companies, the kinds of impact first wealth building for immigrant, for indigenous communities. They have been so helpful as a community to unlearn some of the conventional logics. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to show a couple pictures. One of the things we have done a lot of is making a library of 1-minute videos to explain a little bit of how ESG, the necessity of social education, of changing financial advisors. And the final part I wanted to mention is just the importance of gathering with people from across the globe. This was a gathering we had just last month with Sister Laura Vicuña. She's pictured here in the bottom left. Sister Laura is from SEAMA, the Episcopal Conference of the Amazon region that came out of the Amazon Synod in Porto Velho, Brazil. And she came and spoke with us at the United Nations, but also with our impact investors in New York, and a relationship with her to help understand the reality of genocide of the Caripuna indigenous community helps convict us to realize how urgent it is for us to change courses. And so I leave you with these pictures from the people that are part of our community, and invite you finally to be a part of our community. And the one invitation I want to make is to join us. We have a 3-hour workshop on August 1st. We call it A Taste of Livable Future Investing. And so if you would like to journey alongside us, alongside many other individuals and organizations trying to practically resist the conventional logics and embody these faith-first logics, we would love to have you. And we have a full workshop that's 4 weeks in October. And I'll finally leave you that you are the body of Christ. Each one of us is part of it. Thank you. I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Felipe. What a wonderful, inspiring presentation you made. I'm just waiting for the admin people behind the scenes to turn on my video. Okay, perhaps we'll go directly then to, here we go. Yes, what a wonderful, inspiring presentation. I'd like to remind everyone who's watching that this recording will be available after the webinar. We will make it available to everyone. And it really would be worthwhile going back and watching that presentation again. There was so much in it. Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to introduce the next speaker, Ricardo Flores. He's an economist at the Economy of Francesco. Ricardo, over to you.
Can you hear me? Yeah, right. There we go. Well, thank you very much. And hi, everyone. First, I would like to start by thanking the organization for the invitation to participate in this space. Thank you to everyone who is in the behind the scenes that makes this possible. And thank you, all of you who are here participating in this webinar. I would like to thank Felipe, the previous speaker, and I'm happy to hear that he was in my home country, in El Salvador. And I would like to thank Matthew, who is coming next, for being here, for being with me. My name is Ricardo. I'm an economist from El Salvador. I am a participant of Economy of Francesco, and I have been coordinating the area of business and peace for the past 3 years, I think. I am also now working in the funding part of the Economy of Francesco Foundation, which is the next step of Economy of Francesco. And now I'm here to present a little bit on Economy of Francesco and the campaign Money for Peace, which is a campaign that came from the Business and Peace Village, and that it's a campaign that calls for action, calls for awareness, and calls for a change. So yeah, just starting to talk a little bit about Economy of Francesco. We started by the call. We started 500 economists around the globe. We started back in 2019 by the call of Pope Francis. And now the community has grown to a point that we are more than 2,000 participants all around the globe. We are working in different areas, and we are structured in different villages. I am part of the Business and Peace Village. Well, we believe that peace is an ongoing process, that it's not a goal, it's a process, and we will always have to be working towards ending it. that this process includes education, responsibility, awareness, and justice, and that we condemn with the investment. We believe that a peace economy does not include weapons or profit-only maximizing businesses. With this in mind, we started the Money for Peace campaign. This was the result of a conjuncture, of a global conjuncture that was going on, that is going on, that it's war, that it's injustice, that it's violence. And our main objective is to change the financial landscape. And how will we change it? Well, by being conscious consumers. As Tonio Dell'Olio said when we were in Assis, Economia Francesco is the result of the efforts of each part of the individuals that take part of it. We believe that we can change the financial landscape towards one with the human being at the center. We are looking, or we are working for a financial landscape that shares the values that we have, that works for a better future for ourselves and for the future generations. How do we do this? Well, first we start by the generation of awareness. We started to work with School of Solidarity, which is an institution in the UK, a Muslim institution in the UK. And we have also been working with different other structures that have been working previously in this regard. Some of the information that we were able to gather with these other institutions is that according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, the resources that were destined for the military expenditure was of $2,240 billion. That's 2% of the global GDP. With less than half of that, we can work on basic healthcare, on access to healthcare for the global population. We have been working with the Global Alliance for Banking Values. We have been working with Banca Armada from Spain, from Barcelona, from Catalonia. And with them, we identified that financial institutions, such as banks, insurances, cooperatives, they have been supporting the arms industry, the weapons industry, during the past years in levels that were not seen before. Just in between 2020 and 2022, more than $959 billion were destined to weapons, were destined to war. So what can we do? Well, we as consumers, we can ask, we can question, and we have to question. We have to question our banks. We have to question the institutions that we use. How can we do that? Well, we have prepared a series of letters that can be used. We have prepared a series of letters that can be sent to the financial institutions. We have also worked on the preparation of materials. We have also worked on the coordination of these materials with these other institutions that are working towards this. And we invite ourselves, we invite the consumers, we invite you to question. We invite you to awareness. And with this, to a potential and righteous anger. But more than that, we invite you to action. We can ask and demand our banks to use our money, because it's our money, the one that they are using. We can demand them to use our money in investments that go within our values, that go within the investment in energy transition, that goes within the investment on peace processes, on education, on working with vulnerable populations. And how can we do this? Well, if I reach my bank, the Deutsche Bank, which is the second institution in the European space that invests the most in weapons and in arms and in wars, and they don't change their investment their investment policy, then I can move to a Banca Etica, an institution from Italy that works in the portfolios of ethical investments. We would like to invite everybody to participate. I will ask the coordinators of this space to share the link to the Money for Peace campaign with you. and also to share my email with you in case you would like to reach out, in case you would like to contribute, in case you would like to, or in case if you have ideas on how can we improve. That's also very, very important. We have been also working in some other activities. We had the Call for Peace Marathon, a 12-hour marathon, in which we had the representation of more than 13 countries. We started in Bethlehem in Palestine for the Call for Peace, given the actual context. Also, now we are working in the development of the Economia Francesco Foundation. We are in the structuring part in the development of this platform that will allow our community to implement and work in better ways and work in a more organized and in a more structured way. Now, I would like to thank you again for being here. I would like to invite you to participate. As I would like to finish my presentation quoting two figures from El Salvador. One is a saint and the other one is in the process of being a saint. I would like to start quoting to quote San Oscar Romero, which states that no order that demands the killing of a human being can prevail over the order of God, which is to love, which is to live, which is to protect life. And as Father Rutilio Grande said too, we can only save ourselves when we are like the corn, when we are like the fear of a corn, when we are in community, when we are together, when each of ourselves works together towards a better future. Again, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure. And if you have any idea, if you have any space, or if you would like to have a space to talk about these topics and how to contribute, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, now I will leave you all with the following parts of this amazing webinar, and I wish you all an amazing day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ricardo, and thank you so much for concluding with those prophetic words from both of those saints and coming from El Salvador. We appreciate those prophetic words. I'm standing in for Susie at the moment, everybody. My name is Stephen Fisher, Communications Manager for the Laudato Si Action platform. Unfortunately, Susie, as our moderator, is experiencing some technical difficulties, but I'd be happy to, for this moment, introduce our third speaker, Matthew Jensen. Matthew Jensen is a colleague of Susie at FaithInvest, and he is the Director of Faith Consistent Investing. Matthew, over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Stephen. Hello, everybody. I'm Matthew Jensen from FaithInvest. My bio was posted earlier, and I'll simply say about FaithInvest, we've been around about 5 years now. We grew out of many other events and activities over the last 20 years when it became evident that as faith institutions were trying to bring their values to their assets, to how they invest, that they needed some help doing that. And FaithInvest really grew out of those requests and calls for help on how do I actually do this? So say you're inspired, particularly by our prior two speakers, to really fully integrate the values of Catholic social teaching, in this case, to how you manage your assets. How do you do that? What are the steps? Who's involved? And that's where FaithInvest came from. FaithInvest also existed because there's a lot of faith institutions, 45% by our most recent survey, who don't integrate any of their faith values into their assets at all. So FaithInvest exists to encourage those groups to start the journey that's been talked about, and then to help them along the path. So this, what I'm about to talk about, is really aimed at the implementation. So you've been inspired, you want to do this, or you want to go further. How do I do it? And I will say this discussion is primarily oriented towards faith institutions. So a Catholic endowment or a foundation, or if you're a Catholic organization with pension assets or operating assets, as an example, faiths are very, very wealthy and they have a lot of assets, and those assets can be used to express those values. So this discussion here is primarily oriented to those institutions where there is an institutional process around how they manage their money. So what is faith consistent investing? It has three really key words to it. One is it's intentional, it's integrated, and therefore every decision you make is rooted in your investment values. And the idea here is to spread the values of the faith throughout the entire process of investing to make sure, one, that it's thorough, and two, that it's enduring, that it lives on forever, no matter what happens to the leadership or who retires or who joins the board. It's part of how that institution operates. So these are the three principles that we work on. Next page, please. Busy page, but there's a bit of work to do if you want to integrate faith values fully, enduringly, and thoroughly into your investment structure. And unusually, we start at the bottom here, which is you start with your values. And there's been a lot of discussion of values in the prior two sessions. You probably know what your values are as a faith practitioner and as an institution. But let's be very clear and let's document thoroughly the values you want to express in the portfolio or the assets that you oversee. There's a second part of this then is you're part of an organization, and there's a lot of people that will be involved in making decisions in implementing. Well, you have to get them on board. They have to be part of the process and and the discussion. So building this consensus, getting buy-in that this is something we want to do or we want to do more as an organization. Then you get into the real detailed work of taking those values that you've documented, expressed, the organization has agreed to, and actually translating those into investment instructions. Things that you want your portfolio managers that you hire or your consultants or your other investment service providers to do in the portfolio as an expression of your values. And then the last step is you need to monitor, and this has been talked about somewhat from the prior two discussions, need to check what's going on in the portfolios in your investments. Is it adhering to the values that you've expressed? And then the last part, which I think is underappreciated, tell your story. The faithful in your organization, other organizations of your faith, tell them the story of what you're doing in the portfolio and how you're expressing your faith values and how you're changing the world in line with your faith values. Communicate about what you're doing. Next slide, please. So the essential components of faith-consistent investing, these are the things you need to address as you're implementing it in your organization. Because if it isn't in these things, it won't be thorough and it won't be enduring. It may happen, may not last, and it may not spread across the whole portfolio. We want to be thorough and enduring. So it has to be part of your investment policy. It has to be part of your investment guidelines. And think of your guidelines as the instructions your investment service providers are going to operate on. You're telling them what to do, what to invest in, what not to invest in, given your values that are captured in your policy. You need to have a governance structure. And we just wrote a whole paper with one of the large investment pension consultants on governance for faith-based asset owners. What are good practices to make sure that your values are being implemented in the portfolio and that it's enduring over time? And as I talked about in the prior slide, it needs to be enduring. And you need to communicate what you're doing in the portfolio. Next slide, please. This is getting very detailed. And for those of you who have read, we have a paper out on how you actually write a values integrated investment policy and a value integrated investment guideline. It's all in the paper. We also have case studies out on how different organizations have done this. This is very detailed, but super important work if you want to make sure that those values are translating across all of your portfolios. I put a challenge to you. Find your organization's investment policy and investment guidelines and read them. Can you get your hands on them, first of all? And two, when you read them, what do they say about your organization and what it expects of its investments? Does it strike you as thorough? Does it strike you as enduring as you read them? So just start there. If you haven't seen them or read them, definitely do that. This is how your assets are being managed as an organization. Next slide, please. And there's a tension here that's going to happen. And I'm saying this right up front now, because you're going to come into the process with values in your head. You're going to be thinking about Catholic social teaching. And then, as other speakers have talked about, you're going to interact with the marketplace. You're going to interact with investment managers and consultants and markets. And there's going to be pushback on what you're trying to do in the portfolio. And you're going to have to make some trade-offs, because integrating your values has implications for the other things you're looking for from those assets. You may have a certain return target. You may have certain cash you need on a monthly basis or an annual basis that will affect how much and how far you can go on implementing your values in the portfolio. This dynamic is one of the reasons why governance is so important. You need a group, an informed, diversified group, to be able to make these decisions about trade-offs between values and some of the practicalities of the financial markets. Next slide, please. And I mentioned this before. After hearing all that, you may say, no wonder 45% of institutional faith asset owners don't do any values integration. There's a lot of work to do, as we've shown in the prior couple of slides, but 55% have. And some of them have gone very, very far on this journey. We published research on it. We have actually a very, very big database of faith investment policies and guidelines that we use to help other faiths implement faith-consistent investing in their portfolios. So I will say it is possible. There are many organizations doing it. FaithInvest exists to help you do it as a faith-based asset owner. Next slide, please. And there's good case studies out there. So we just put out a case study based on a Catholic organization we worked with, who started from a rather modest base of faith-consistent investing. They had some basic screens in there, no tobacco, no alcohol, those types of things, to a much more fully integrated, thorough, and enduring investment policy, guideline, process, and portfolio. And we documented all in this case study that's available online, so you can get a sense of what it's like. And then the next slide, please. Then the last thing, some quotes from organizations that have done this. And if you go to the next slide, we're actually going to spend, every quarter we get institutional faith asset owners together from around the world, and we talk about a topic. Well, one coming up on June 6th is all about, if I want to start faith-consistent investing in my organization, how do I take that first step of building a consensus and getting approval to do it? Or if I want to go further and I want to make it enduring and deeper, how do I do that? And it's more focused on sort of the organizational behavior aspects of doing this, building consensus and such. And so we're going to focus on that on June 6th. We'll have 2 faith-based asset owners come in and talk about either how they got started or how they keep it enduring, how they make it living in their organization. And that's coming up. That may be of interest for those of you who are curious. And I think that's about it. Is that? I think that's it, right? Good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Deeply appreciate that. And thank you to all of our participants. We value the opportunity to hear from you and see how your individual journeys and organizations have worked hard to apply the principles of Laudato Si. As we saw, there's no one right answer, but there are conversations that you're having with your faith traditions and your values. So thank you. I will take some time to move us into the Q&A for all of our panelists. We have received some great questions, and feel free to continue adding some into our Q&A feature in Zoom. But to begin, the first question I want to pose to our participants, Ricardo, Matthew, or Felipe, whoever feels so inspired. We have a question asking, how can these concepts be cascaded to the entire church? For example, to a diocese or a country? Whoever feels bold enough to take that question on, go ahead.
I can jump in on that if helpful. The way I've seen it done in practice, for example, if you're in the US or the UK or Germany, your Conference of Catholic Bishops will have guidelines that they promulgate. And I will say, I would look those up. They're available online, and read them carefully. They actually differ among them. There's some for Italy, but pretty much every Catholic Conference of Bishops has investment guidelines they publish. Read them carefully and see if there's something that is relevant for you or your organization. So that's one thing that happens. The other thing that happens is I've seen particularly Catholic organizations make their investment policies and guidelines available online. So you can go and look up your local diocese. There may be a sisters organization, Jesuit or other organization that has their investment policy available online. And I've seen other organizations use those to inform how they think about what they do. And of course, we've got a huge database, and we get queried all the time on how do other organizations deal with this investment? What are other organizations doing? And we're happy to share that as well.
I think it's such a different reality in so many different countries, especially for dioceses to manage their money. And so many dioceses and so many congregations don't have many resources to invest, right? So I want to recognize how this conversation is very much different based on each context. That said, financial management is an important part of our church that hasn't been navigated very well in so many parts. And I know some foundations, I know Porticus has been attentive to realizing we need better financial management training at many diocesan levels. But I think the invitation I feel is to recognize how we are all part of our own parishes, parish councils. We're all part of helping to make it easier to understand and resource what truly is leading towards an embodiment of holding the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth together with the problems of the global economy. We can find those resources, we can find those advisors, we can find those documents, those practical things for the small resources we may have. And us individually wrestling with it, and at a parish level and a diocesan level, I think it can spread. And I think I'm very grateful for Ricardo and the whole Economy of Francesco and so many other lay movements, Focolare and many others that I think do have global reaches, lay communities. There's so many wonderful movements in our church that I think even through Laudato Si movement, we have circles and can inspire each other and can resource each other. So I feel like we have the net, it works. It's about the clarity and the leadership, and each of us stepping up in our own leadership to spread the word.
Yeah, if I can just put my 2 cents in these wonderful interventions. Well, I think what Felipe said is very important too. We have to take in consideration the context of each space that this is being developed. I think we also have to remember that in reality, we are not asking for anything special. We are asking for common sense. We are asking for values. We are asking for the money to be invested in a way that prioritizes human being. I think it's important to remember that finances are not the goal. Finances are a tool. Money is a tool to achieve something. Money should not be the goal of something. We need to remember, if you go to the meaning of the word of the word economy, is to take care of the common house, is to take care of that place that holds the warmth that allows the reproduction of life. In that sense, I do believe that it starts by awareness, as Matthew mentioned. It starts by awareness. Let's generate awareness. Let's ask what's being done, and then it goes with with taking a step further, as Felipe said, and demand a change. If we want to focus in this regard, let's ask them to focus in this regard, and let's move towards that. So yeah, I think that would be my brief participation, and yeah, I think the words that have been said by the fellow panelists are very convenient.
Thank you, everyone, for those insights. We have another question that caught my eye. This is from an attendee who is asking, banks and societies have a system that is often difficult to undermine, and I think you each spoke to that in your own way. Often the economic model is capitalist and exploitative and predominant. Are there any concrete and applicable models that can be implemented on a large scale, and how to perform it, given that we are often caught in these tense systems?
Maybe I can start in this one, as I was the last one in the previous one. I can be the first one in this one. So I think it's important when you put in perspective the economic reproduction system that we are living under right now, the capitalist economic reproduction system. We have to understand that the biggest virtue of capitalism is the capacity to reinvent itself and maintain itself in this way. If you see in history of humankind, the capitalist section of history is not the longest, it's actually one of the shortest one in which we have been living in. And it has gotten into a point in which it's easier to believe that the world is gonna end rather than capitalism is gonna end. So I think if we are living under a reproduction economic system that prioritizes the generation of money, the generation of processes that concentrates money, I think we can be part of the solution from the inside. We can start moving the pieces that we have in our square meter. We can start by changing our points of view. We can start by changing the ways that we conceive economy. In Economia Francesco, we have an amazing project that is called Mission Amboseli. It's a project in a community in Kenya. That it's very eye-opening, because you realize that capitalism is not the only economic system that exists. You can also watch it with communities in Brazil, Argentina, Central America, Mexico, and also here in Europe. You can see models of solidarity and other models that prioritize the commonwealth, that prioritize the access to human rights. I do believe that by changing our perspectives, by changing the ways that we view things, the ways that we do things, it's the first step towards changing the paradigm and pushing towards that. As Economia Francesco is too, the sum of the efforts of each individual will generate that change. So that would be my participation in this question.
Hey, can I just jump in? There was on this. There was a beautiful quote in the chat that I just want to highlight, and I'm probably going to save this and print it out and share it. This individual wrote, "The solution is in each person's pocket. If you buy destruction, you will have destruction. If you buy future, you will have future." Beautifully said.
Thank you so much for highlighting those beautiful words from our audience. It's glad to be in dialogue with everyone here. I think we have time for one more question, and this one is actually directed for you, Matthew. Do you have any experience working with Catholic social teaching or faith values to investment with companies and organizations that are interested in making change, but don't necessarily have a faith tradition or a belief system?
Interesting. FaithInvest primarily works with organizations that are faith-based. And that could, frankly, that could be a family foundation, for example, that has a strong Catholic foundation to it. But otherwise, we really only work today with faith-based organizations. We're pan-faith, so we work with Catholic and then faith from many other backgrounds, and we work around the world as well. So we work with institutions in the US and Europe and in Asia. And as you can imagine, that covers a lot of different faith aspects. And I think one of the interesting aspects of our convenings is we're bringing together people from different faith backgrounds and values and practices, and they're listening and learning from each other. There's a lot of commonalities. There's a lot of very interesting differences as well that people are curious about. And it's helpful to learn from some of these other faith organizations or other faith practices and what they're doing and how they're trying to implement their faith values.
Thank you so much, Matthew, and thank you for all the participants and our panelists here for such an enriching Q&A session. Sometimes it's hard to know where to begin or know what is the best place to start with all these complicated questions, but you've landed these questions and really grounded us, so thank you. I want to take a few moments before we close our time together to speak on behalf of my counterpart, Susie, and note the Faithful Finance course on behalf of our partners, FaithInvest. If you are inspired by what you heard today and you're keen to take some next steps, as we mentioned, and even perhaps as a part of your Laudato Si plan, you may wish to join the FaithInvest course, Faithful Finance, an introduction to aligning investments with faithful values. This course does comprise of 4 modules over 4 weeks and is ideal if your faith organization wants to find out a little bit more about faith-consistent investing, as we spoke about today, or if you want to go further on the faith-consistent investing journey with us. FaithInvest will cover the foundational principles of faith-based investing, how to engage with financial intermediaries with clarity and confidence, and how to enhance your investment strategies with your faith values. The next course will be in the fall, so a few months away. And if you're in the UK, you can find out more information and register your interest at www.faithinvest.org/training.
I will say it's not only UK, and I'll simply say if you heard my presentation and are interested or confused or overwhelmed, this is a little slower, a little more detailed way to kind of go through it and really help you on the journey. Thanks for that, Stephen.
And thank you for clarifying that, Matthew. And as a next note, I will say that for those who are an LSAP participant or who are curious, we please encourage you to enroll or submit your plan. And if you would like to receive further news from the Laudato Si Action Platform, please visit us at laudatosiactionplatform.org. Upload your reflections once you're enrolled and your plans, and you can encourage your diocese, parishes, schools to create their own Laudato Si plans as well, and invite everyone on this very complicated but needed journey. If you've had a recent success story or an event, big or small, please email us as well. You can email us at info@laudatosiactionplatform.org, and we can share them on social media by tagging us. Finally, I'd like to add that FaithInvest has a section on their website called Living Laudato Si. It is an information hub with plenty of resources and case studies to help you on your own ecological economics journey. And you can find that on their website. Again, their website is www.faithinvest.org. And as we close, a big thank you to everyone who connected from around the world. Our thanks to people working behind the scenes, our interpreters, our technical support staff to make today's webinar possible. And we look forward to seeing everyone again on May 22nd for our next webinar, which will be an opportunity to hear the story of women and men religious around the world as they confront the climate crisis. These are stories of faith and hope, and will involve responses to natural disasters, minor and indigenous exploitation, land use renovation, the plastic crisis, and a lot more. We'd be really excited to see your faces again for that webinar. We will also have a webinar on June 6th on how to integrate creation care into the life of the church. So please stay tuned for more information on that webinar. A big thank you once again. And before we say a goodbye officially, I do want to conclude with a prayer. So I invite everyone to take a deep breath. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Creator of all that is good and nourishing, as we conclude our gathering today, we offer you our gratitude for the knowledge shared and the fellowship enjoyed. Thank you for the insights gained and the inspiration stirred within each of us. We ask for your blessing on all who have participated and contributed to this conversation. May the seeds of understanding planted here flourish into actions that honor and protect your creation. Guide us in our journey toward ecological justice and economic stewardship, that we may be instruments of your peace and caretakers of the world you have entrusted to us. Encourage us, O Lord, to continue this vital work with renewed commitment and hope, that together we may create a future that reflects your love for all creation. Until we meet again, keep us safe in your grace and your resolve to act justly and live sustainably. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Thank you, everybody. Please be well.